Hi, I'm Karen Gosoko, one of the tutors listed with the Dyscalculia network. And in this, my first Fixit with Karen video, I'm going to be looking at multiplication. In particular, how the commutative property of multiplication can help us when we're learning our times table facts. All we're going to need are some counters or things like glass nuggets, anything we can use small items. And if you happen to have a bingo dabber, then we can have a little bit of fun with that as well.
So we're going to look at one of the easier multiplication facts. One of the facts that we learned earlier on, which is 3 multiplied by 5. So the 5 times table tends to be one of the first multiplication tables that we learn facts for. And 3 times 5 is one of the lower facts in that times table. So what's actually happening when we work out 3 times 5? So when we think of times or multiply, it's useful to think of it as 3 lots of 5 or 3 groups of 5, because that allows us to use some counters and see what's actually happening in that multiplication. So when we multiply, we can see here I've got 3 lots of 5, and I like to use dot patterns so we can see really easily, without counting, we can subbutize how many in each group. So 3 lots of 5, we can count in 5s if we're happy with counting in 5s, and find out that's 5, 10, 15. Because what we're really doing is just repeatedly adding 5 in our 5 times table. 5, add 5, add 5 equals 15. So that's a fact that we know. So I'm going to write that answer in here. 3 multiplied by 5 equals 15. But then also we can think about another fact. If I take these counters, I can see in this counter I've got 3 in this group. I've got 3 and another 3 and another 3, and I can easily just rearrange these counters. So now I've got the same number of counters, but this time I can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups, and in each group there are 3 counters. So I've got this time 5 times 3, and we know the answer is still 15 because I didn't actually add or remove any counters. So the same number of counters can be shown in 2 different ways, and that's because multiplication is commutative. It has a commutative property, and that fancy word just means it doesn't matter which way round the numbers in our calculation or multiplication calculation go, we get the same answer. So 3 times 5 gives us exactly the same answer as 5 times 3. And that means that we can choose the easiest table to use. So if I want to do 5 times 3, I can very easily think of it instead as 3 times 5 and use my 5 times table. So I'm going to show that in a slightly different way. So exactly the same fact, but this time I'm going to arrange my counters into rows. So I've got 3 rows and 5 counters in each row, and we call this an array. And again, it's really good for showing multiplication facts because I can see that I have got 3 rows of 5, and I can also see I've got 5 columns of 3. So I can see both facts in that array. So how can we use that commutative property of multiplication to find facts that we don't know? I'm going to write a multiplication calculation, and often if I would ask a child 5 times 7, they would say, I can't answer it because I don't know my 7 times table. Well, we can use that commutative property of multiplication to use our 5 times table. And I'm going to do that quickly by showing an array, and I'm going to use my bingo dabber because that's a great way to really quickly make an array. You could just do it with a felt tip pen, you could just do it with counters or glass nuggets, but I'm going to show 5, 6, 7. I need 5 rows, 5 groups of 7. So there's my array, 5 lots of 7, 5 times 7. So counting in sevens is quite tricky, but what we can do is turn this around. So now we can see, instead of counting in sevens, we can easily see we've got our 5s. We can count in 5s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lots of 5. So I'm going to write my calculation again this way, but this time I'm going to write 7 lots of 5. So I can use my 5 times table. If I can't recall that fact, I can count in 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and there we go. So I can go back to my original fact, 5 lots of 7. I know it's exactly the same number of counters or spots, so I know that 5 times 7 is also 35. So that commutative property of multiplication means that every time we learn a multiplication fact, or almost every time, we're actually learning the fact from another table as well. And that reduces the number of facts that we have to be able to recall.
I hope that this has been helpful in showing how the commutative property can help with our times table facts.